Are you really ready to mind your business? This is Mind Your Business with Holly Whaley, where strategy meets soul and excuses get left behind. I'm Holly, your business coach, here for real talk, real growth, and real results. So grab your coffee and let's get to work. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mind Your Business with Holly Whaley. I'm so excited. I have an amazing guest with us today. He is a financial planner. He's going to help you get all of your assets together, make sure that you are ready for the future and when to start planning and all of the things regarding finances. His name is Jeremy, and he's with Atrium Financial Associates, and you are going to love him as much as I do. He is amazing at what he does. And so we're going to talk a little bit about his journey, but also finances, and then we'll just see where the conversation leads us. So thank you, Jeremy, for being here today.
Of course. Quite the intro. I love it. I appreciate it. I'm super excited. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, I'm really, really excited. So I had the opportunity to meet Jeremy probably a few months ago, towards the latter part of last year, beginning of this year. And we have been able just to network and meet one another, and I've had the opportunity to learn more about his journey and what he does. And so, Jeremy, why don't you tell us all how you landed in finance?
Sure. Yeah. So, it's funny. I'm sure a lot of us can relate. Growing up, right? We don't know exactly where we're going to end up. So I did a fairly normal marketing and finance in college. I ended up working at Vanguard, which I'm sure a lot of people might know. Huge company, especially in the retirement space. Everyone's, my 401k's there or something. A lot of people might say that. But really great start to the career. Worked a number of years there. I got my CFP, which is a great designation in my industry, the Certified Financial Planner. And now where I'm at an independent firm here in Cherry Hill. And I couldn't be happier. Very much, a relationship business. We talk about finances a lot, right? But at the end of the day, it's having relationships with people and making sure that, I'm doing what's in their best interest. Making sure that we're reaching everyone's goals. So it's so much fun. It's a puzzle every day, which I love. And no day's the same, which I'm sure the same for you, Holly. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, I love that. So, Jeremy, let me ask you this question. So I know that you help businesses as well as individuals. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so can you just kind of give us a little synopsis of what it would be like to work with you on the business side? So me as a business owner coming to you for financial planning, what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, it's funny that it's not as different as you think when you talk about personal finance and business finance, and that at the end of the day, planning and really being organized is one of the biggest parts. So, I'm not going to throw a bunch of terms at you and really, over-explain too much, but, when working with businesses, just like when working with individuals, one of the first steps is, hey, let's understand your goals. Everything that I do is goal-based. So, whether it's I want to grow from 1 employee to 10 employees in the next XYZ number of years, I want to profit this, the list can go on, but you really can't do much until you identify what you're looking for, and then take a look at your balance sheet, right? Or your income and expenses. It's really knowing what your goals are, taking a look at your current situation. So I make this, I'm spending this is what's left over, what can I be doing with it? That's where the puzzle comes in, right? Because everyone's priorities, everyone's values, everyone's decision making is different. So it's really nice for someone like me. There's not always an exact answer, right? It's kind of partnering with my clients and deciding together what to go forward with. And of course I use my expertise and I use, of course, the partnership and their opinion to help them get there. So
Right.
might have gone on a rant there, but that was my long-winded answer of how I work with a lot of my clients.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
Because what that says is that it's customizable. I'm not going to come in and you're going to fit me into your box. We're going to build one.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Because I often tell people, people get funny with their money. They're very particular about where their money goes, how they
Sure.
spend their money, as am I, right? Like, I don't want anyone to mishandle my money. And I think that, including myself. And
Yeah.
so having that extra set of eyes, it's almost like having a coach.
I think,
Right.
to your point, accountability is a word that comes to mind a lot, and I am an accountability partner. Anyone can go in an Excel document, right, and write out their income and expenses, and it works, right? Hey, if it's I make 200,000, I spend 150, I'm profiting, 50, but the plan, the Excel document is only as good as the accuracy of it. So one thing that myself and all financial coaches, call it a coach, call it anyone, the accountability partnership is huge, right? We meet as needed, whether maybe it's quarterly, maybe it's semi-annually, whatever it might be. Hey, let's review that Excel document, and it's kind of like having to turn in your homework, right? And say, is this true? Is this what it's looking
Right.
like? And that's, it's forever changing. That's one thing I definitely want to make a point of. It's always evolving. Things are always coming up in life, in business, whatever it might be. But the whole, the important thing is to stay on top of it, make sure that we're forever evolving with it.
Yeah. So as you said that, I was thinking, so I work, I have clients that are bookkeepers, accountants, things like that. And so for a small business, it's almost like I could hear somebody saying, well, I have an accountant and I have a bookkeeper, right? I have all of that. Why would I need to work with Jeremy for my
Sure.
business? What would you say to them?
I need to take my hat off of I'm biased, right? I do what I do because I love it. But my answer to that is it's a different industry to me, right? I work very closely, even in my own business, with a lot of tax experts, estate planners. There's a lot of complementary industries within what we all call finance, but there is so much more to dive into when you break it all down, right? When I think of an accountant, that's not someone, again, I'm sorry to be a little biased, but that's not something I would think to go to someone to discuss. Here are 5 goals that I have. I want a second location. I want to hire more employees. I want to earn this. It gets so in depth in that I want to hire someone that is their job. That is their primary job, right? Hey, I need to partner with accountants. I need to partner with lawyers. The list goes on, right? And it's, no one can do anything alone. I've really found in my industry and in many, especially business owners. But I think it's important to put your trust into someone that really specializes in that craft. And if there's any accountants listening, I hope that didn't sound rude in any way, but I think we can all understand, specifically what our specialties are.
Right. No, and I think most accountants would say thank you.
Yeah,
Right.
on April 12th, no
Right.
one's coming in and saying, the whole point is, I partner with so many different industries, and it's been really great. What's a good example? I'm not a mortgage expert, right? But when I have a client that comes to me with a goal, whether it's a personal or business, of buying a home, let's say that's more personal, I have mortgage people that I would want to reach out to, and it's not because I can't know everything. It's because I want them to have the best service that they can have. I'm not a mortgage expert, so I rely on partnerships. So those are my thoughts there.
Yeah. Can you, I think when I think about financial planning, I think, more in depth than a balance sheet, my P&L, right? It's bigger than that. So it's really about how am I taking the money that I'm saving for my business for the future and actually creating passive income, or putting it in the right areas where I'm going to get a higher yield on it so that I can do more with it. And I think that's the impact and the beauty of really working with a financial planner, is really understanding that.
It's a really good point, Holly. I mean, many people I talk to, just in my experience and all the networking that I do, we were never taught financial planning in school. Maybe some people were, but there was no class in my high school, college called financial planning where I was able to learn where to save, how much to do. It just wasn't there, right? And when we're business owners or just families that want to be successful, that doesn't make you an expert in, as a business owner who's an expert in their craft, why should I also be an expert in financial planning? It's a lot. So to your point, something that I use really often, it's such a simple concept, but I think that's what I like about it. It's a 3-bucket approach. So if you can picture it in your head, short-term, mid-term, long-term. You have goals that fit into all 3 buckets. So short-term, maybe 0 to 2 years, mid-term 2 to 10, let's say long-term 10 plus. It's our job to really identify what your goals are and fit them into those buckets. So you make a really good point. What you made me think of was like cash. If I have a goal that's short term, I want to expand the bathroom in my office in 2 months, that if I'm saving for that, that's a cash or cash equivalent position, right? We need that money soon. We don't want to be too aggressive in any way. But as a term that we use a lot, time horizon, if you want to expand in 7 years from now, well, if I have savings sitting in cash, when it could be maybe in a more, I wouldn't call it too aggressive, because 7 years isn't too far away, but the whole point of my job is really helping you identify your goals, what investments make sense, what allocations we should be putting towards them to match up the strategy to your goals. And a lot of the times it's based on time and really risk management. How aggressive or conservative do I want to be? So that's kind of a 101 on general financial planning.
Yeah, I love that. And that made it so simple when you said the 3 buckets, right? Because I think sometimes it can be just even if somebody hasn't worked with a financial planner or hasn't really sat down with one in any capacity, it can feel very intimidating, very overwhelming, like, oh my gosh, like, what is this going to do to me, right? And you think very costly. I don't have the money, because you think about somewhere in our brains, we correlate it with just the stock market, some of the bigger firms and, all the millions and millions of dollars, right, that's out there. And sometimes people can feel very intimidated by that.
Absolutely.
So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head with that, Holly, because I am one, I don't know how I look, I have a few grays coming in, but compared to my colleagues here, some of my colleagues have a few decades on me, right? So I have such a fresh perspective on being a financial planner and what it looks like, in that I want to be that person that, intimidation is a great, a lot of, hey, I don't have the money, I don't think I can, but where do you start if that's the case? There needs to be a starting point for all of these, people to have some guidance, right? So I'm glad you recognize it, because that's something that I try my best to really show when I present myself to people, and that I'm not, I'm here to help. I'm a partner, right? We're not, gonna take you into a dark room and show you the stock market and scare you or anything. If anything, it's really about working together and planning. So, yeah.
Where do you think people should start? what's step one for people?
It's a good question. You know, step one, I'm just, you know, I think of a client from today, right? So it's not that challenging because it's top of mind. You need to know where you're at right now. You can't start planning until you kind of have a foundation or a baseline. Whether, you know, the first thing that I do, more so with individuals than maybe businesses, but let's take a look at income versus expenses. Expenses are always challenging, right? We have income, you know, it depends. You know,
Right.
am I commissioned? Am I salaried? But it's a little bit easier to know what you're bringing in and you know, try and get an idea of what you're spending, because sometimes the wake-up call happens right there where you say, I'm spending more than I make. I can't start with anything until I fix that. So, you know, I definitely don't want to tell people not to be dreamers, because, you know, it's great to have goals and to look forward to things, but it's important to build a foundation to really get started on something before we dive in too deep. So it's kind of a patience game a little bit to get going, but you got to start by kind of looking in the mirror and making sure you're ready to get started.
I love that. Knowing where you're at right now is critical to being able to even start to plan.
Absolutely.
And that is such a nugget that I hope everyone is realizing. First of all, every one of us has a starting point. Everybody. And everybody's starting point is a little different, but identifying where you're at today helps you to then prepare and plan for tomorrow and beyond. So that is great advice. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
For small businesses, particularly, what about those that haven't really thought about retirement? They've just kind of put everything into the business. How do we work with that?
It's a really good question, and it's a challenging concept because we're all different, right? So I can't give an exact answer, but you know, retirement accounts for small businesses are still quite important. You think of the things like, you know, 401ks are what comes to mind for a lot of people, but some things that people might not have heard of as much: SEP IRAs, simple IRAs, solo 401ks. These are designed for smaller businesses that still give you, you know, for most of them, it's the tax, you know, you contribute, it grows tax deferred, and however many, you know, sometimes decades down the line is when I may touch it. But to your question, how do I know how much to put back into the business first to start saving for retirement? Of course, I can't give you an answer generally on that, but you know, there are important benchmarks, right, where I do want to diversify out my savings rates, right? You know, unless it depends where you're at in the growth of your life. But, you know, it's always good to start saving towards retirement. Time is the biggest value of being in the market. And that's, I didn't create that quote or anything. It's very common, right? You know, as much time as we can continue, you know, the concept, and I'm going to ramble here, but quick concept on, we call it dollar cost averaging. Setting something up systematically, doesn't matter, you know, $100 a month. I know that's, you know, not a lot, but if I were able to continue just to put that into the market at all times, at the end of the day, it averages out. And compounding over time, it really does make a difference. So if you take anything from that, you, working with myself or any professional, we need to decide in what ratios or allocations we're going to be using in reinvestments into the business, you know, maybe taking out debts to grow the business, or saving towards retirement specifically in these types of accounts. You know, it's a decision that goes into the plan.
Yeah, I think that's really important. When should people start, and this is more on the individual side, but when should people start thinking about financial planning?
Yesterday. You know, financial planning, that, for what I do, it's pretty, you know, it's very, the word that comes to mind, I don't want to say intense, but that, you know, we're taking it very seriously. You're hiring me to be your financial planner, but when I talk about habits, maybe I changed the word from financial planning. It's important to start building these habits as early as possible, right? A lot of us, when we're in a traditional job where maybe I have a 401k, I don't even know it's coming out of my salary, let's say. If I'm in a job where it's just being taken out pre-tax, it's kind of set it and forget it. I know it's being taken. But what you don't even realize you're doing is you're building a good habit. That percentage of your salary, let's say, that you're having go to the 401k, you didn't have a chance to go spend that somewhere or do something else with it. So I guess my point with that is habit building is so important at every point in finances, whether it's paying off loans, growing an emergency fund. I'm a really big fan of systematically setting things up. It doesn't really matter at first what the dollar value is. If you're able to put $100 into an emergency savings account every month that you weren't doing before, great. It's more the habit building. As you grow, whether it's age, business, whatever, the dollars will increase, right? But it's more understanding that I'm making sure to be responsible in how I allocate. So, yeah, those are my thoughts there.
I think it's really important too that parents take their children when they sit down with a financial planner, take them not so much as they get older, they'll understand more, right? But seeing that that too is a habit. Mm-hmm. This is who's important. I remember being a little girl and we would go meet with insurance people. We would go and meet with financial planners, my parents, right? I was little. And so what that taught me is that those are important people I need to meet with, even though I may not have even understood what it was about. Mm-hmm. They were just important people.
Yeah, so, it's good to be exposed. There's no negative to it to me. It's great education. I do work with younger professionals where sometimes it is the basics, right? It's really, again, kind of back to my point of we didn't really get taught this class in school. If we have to start with the basics of building a budget, I'm happy to do it. That is everyone, coming back to everyone starting somewhere, you bringing up children, do you have a budget when you're filling your piggy bank? I don't know, but hey, it's a great habit to get into. I remember having a piggy bank, and I had I think a monthly allowance it was for doing chores, and it's maybe I don't realize it till right now, saying it out loud, that my parents were doing a great thing. Maybe they made me a financial planner. Who knows? But
right.
It's never too early to really start to build good habits.
Yeah, I think that's so important because it's not something that has been taught in our education system, yet it's how the world survives, and we need it.
Totally.
Now, I have, we're just about at our time, but I have a question for you. With everything that people are seeing on TikTok and social media and all these things, and they're all going to be day traders. Can you give us any insight into, is that something we should look at? Is that something that we should really just leave it to our financial planners to help us plan that out? What do we do with all this information? Because it's coming fast, right?
Yeah.
And how realistic all that stuff.
Every day. It's exciting to see these cryptocurrency investments or ways, you bring up very aggressive plays, day trading. The answer to you, Holly, is going to be, when I get these questions, I'll tell a client, what is your goal for the investment? And it kind of makes them answer it. Jeremy, the goal is to buy a house in 2 years. The goal is to save for retirement. At the end of the day, I have my clients kind of answer the question themselves if they know it's a good idea or not. In that, some of these ultra aggressive investments, if we have a really nice financial plan put together, and you say, Jeremy, I want to have $10,000 of play money. I know we're in a really good place. I'm doing all the right things, matching the goal, but I enjoy watching things, and I'm okay with that. You know, it's called play money. You need to know the risks in it, but all of these things that we are influenced by on social media, and I don't mean to be the big, you know, what's the word? You know, dark cloud. That's no fun, but it's the responsible answer, right? We need to make sure that we're planning in our best interests, and a lot of times these exciting investments might not be that. So I guess just think about it before you go ahead and make a big decision would be my ultimate answer there.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting to see where people go, and I think that social media has fed us this. You don't have to work hard. You just sit and, you know, do this day trading, and you're gonna make, you know, $1 million overnight.
Yeah.
And I laugh when I hear things like that and see things, and, you know, I know people have made good amounts,
Mm-hmm.
but to your point, it's very much for a particular thing. I'm putting it in there, and a lot of times it's to play with, to see if they can do it, and then when
Yep.
they get a certain amount, they pull it out, right? And I think that we have to understand that there's a reason that people go to school, people put their heart and soul into learning all of this and all the different components that go into any type of trading that's done, and it's a gamble.
That's the perfect. It's a gamble.
Yeah.
Do you want to gamble, or do you want a financial plan, or you know? So
Right.
it's a really good point. That's the perfect
Yeah.
word. Yeah.
I have an uncle that he told me one day. He said, look at my money that I've made over the last 6 months," and he had made a substantial amount of money. But I laughed at him. I said, "How did you do that?" And he said, "Oh, I'm doing day trading." I said, "Are you doing it?" He said, "Well, I hired somebody." But he said, "I just like to see what it does." He's
Yeah.
just curious, right? And so he took a very small amount of money and he made some good decisions, or his financial advisor
Yeah.
did, right? And you know, they did okay with it. But it's not something that, if you're going to do it, get the proper education.
Absolutely.
I mean, if that's going to be your job, right, get connected right with the right firms and things like that.
Yeah.
Rather than just trying to do what TikTok's telling you to.
Couldn't agree more. You need, yeah. Do your research. You know, trust the professionals. I think that's a good checklist before you make any big decisions there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jeremy, one last question, then I'll let you go. So I know you are young in the industry, right? You're younger than a lot of your peers. So what is it like building your book of business and coming into an establishment that people are a lot older than you?
It's a great question. I love it. You know, you look at the competition. You know, it's a very important industry, and I totally understand that there are people that, you know, are looking for someone that's been in an industry 30 years, right? I make sure that I'm surrounding myself. You know, here at Atrium, my mentor, I've known him my entire life. He helps me with everything. I'll be the future of his business. You know, I am the fresh perspective, right, that is able to make sure to communicate with different generations, younger professionals, but I know he has my back. We work together on everything. And I've done, you know, all of the proper education. Getting my CFP was one of the best things that I've done. Just a year of really good education and making sure I'm well prepared. But I love the thrill, right, of needing to build my own business and having to go out there and really meet people. I love talking. I talk for a living, right? Finances are so important. But this is a relationship management industry in that you want to have to work with me. You know, the guy next door can find a very similar investment strategy, right? But it's really, when you choose who you work with, you want to have to work with them. So I really like talking and working with my clients.
I love that. I absolutely love that. If you're looking for a financial planner, please connect with Jeremy. All of his contact information will be in the show notes. We want you to meet up with Jeremy and, more importantly, get your finance planning started. Even if you haven't started yet, start planning for your future. And for me, I feel like sometimes, while I appreciate the wisdom of the generation that has already worked through this and they've lived through a couple of decades, I also appreciate the for lack of a better way of saying this, lack the structure of the old regime, right? Like, think differently, think outside of the box. There's new tools available. There's new ways of planning your future. And so I like working with younger people as well, just to get fresh and new ideas. So just reach out to Jeremy. He's a wealth of information. I would highly recommend anybody that is a small business owner, reach out and find out about 401ks for yourself. I understand, and Jeremy, you can help me with this, but I believe the state of New Jersey, and it might be federal, now requires, if you have W-2 employees, you are providing them with some type of option. And so Jeremy's a great resource to say, we have options available to you. So reach out to him, say hello, let him know you heard about him from Mind Your Business. And thank you, Jeremy, for being here. It's been so much fun.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me, Holly. It's always nice chatting.
Thanks for tuning in to Mind Your Business with Holly Whaley. If today gave you that spark, strategy, or straight up truth you needed, be sure to hit subscribe and stay connected. Growth happens when you mind your business with intention and a little courage. And if you're ready to go deeper with strategy, accountability, and community, I'd love to invite you to the Builders Circle, my group coaching space for entrepreneurs who are serious about building well. You'll find the details in the show notes. Until next time, keep showing up, keep growing, and keep minding your business, because the world needs what only you can build.